Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow inmates, and welcome to another session from the Wise Asylum. Well, there's quite a lot going on this week, has there not? Tommy the Lionheart has run off. Honestly, I mean, oh, come on. And he's begging for money, of course. It's all about the dosh. He needs it to resettle his refugee family, who, of course, divorced him in 2021, I believe. Also, I believe he's being chased by bailiffs for 100 grand plus. But no, because he's such a tough geezer. ISIS are going to kick his head in, and he shit himself and run off. The superhero of the working class has run away again. Why? Well, come on. Surely people can see now. He's just a little grifter working for the small hats, attacking another branch that works for the same small hats, Islam. And you fell for it. You fell for it, up, line and sinker, didn't you? You football hooligans. Yeah, surely now you can see he's just garbage. You know, he's not what he said he were. He's no intention of leading anything apart from you astray while taking all your money. His Bentley's broken, and of course, as the image at the beginning showed you, he's had to do a quickie in his son's little car. So, mockery, why not? Why not mock him? I mean, what he's actually done in relation to sending you down a dead-end path and made a lot of money out of it at the same time. It's not ISIS that he should be worried about. Because when you really do start to realise what he's done, who he works for, and it's been so since he left the British National Party and formed the EDL, it's you guys that want to be onto him. And maybe that is exactly what's taken place, and that, you know, so many of you now can see through him that actually what he really fears is not ISIS at all, which of course is another branch of Mossad, trained by him, financed by him, there to kill Muslims in Muslim countries and kill Christians that are also in Muslim countries. That's what ISIS is all about. You know, and I've said before, you've got your three religions, but above those you've got two political systems. You've got political Zionism, which is the political aspect of rabbinical Judaism that's completely scooped up the evangelical Christians, and it would appear has got control of the Vatican. And you've got political Islam running atop of Islam. ISIS, ISIL, Pashtun, the Taliban, yeah. All these militarized terror forces all operating on behalf of Mossad. And if you want evidence for that, just reckon with this. Why did they never attack Israel? Ever. Why did Biden leave billions and billions of military hardware in Afghanistan? Because it's their gig. And all this wind and piss that Tom has thrust out there all these years is on behalf of the same force that controls that as well, that he's now claiming is on his back. I don't believe it. I believe that people here have started to recognise, and he's not getting the way. He's not getting the energy that he thought he'd have all over him for forever. He's been out of this country for so long now, it's quite ridiculous anyway. So I hope this is now getting to the point where people start to realise just what he's done, who he is, and who he works for. And should he ever step foot back on Blighty, it's Blighty that sorts him out. Because he's ripped the piss out of the lot of you. Ripped the piss out of you. So hopefully that is what people are starting to see. You've got big moves now against Iran, which is what I've said all along. Iran's the game on the table for war. Forget Ukraine, forget Russia, that's just to militarise every country. Iran is the target, and Trump sent in a fleet. Netanyahu is very cross in respect of the fact that they've burnt the image of Baal in Tehran, and he took that as an act of war. Now, if that doesn't wake up you Jehovah's Witnesses, you evangelicals, you Seventh-day Adventists, all you fruit bats that are running around on Masonic rabbinical Judaism, if that doesn't show you what Israel represents, they've got excited about burning image of Baal, then stop kidding yourself and stop ever using the term Christian, because you're way, way off the mark when it comes to that. So in a sense, there's a lot happening, but also there's been a lot of veils lifted, if you're paying attention. Yeah, most people probably won't, but if you're paying attention, there's been a lot of veils lifted this week. A lot of veils, and it should help you to reevaluate where you're going, where is your stand, where you're putting your energy, and what are you going to do from this point on? Because the games are going on, and it's not stopping. You've got these lunatics think that they're on the back foot. Don't be ridiculous. The game is playing out like a fiddle. It's just working so well because people are just so diverted. There are one or two little good eggs coming out of the Epstein releases. But of course, I only if it comes up on my stuff, I'll look at it. Some of it's okay. But obviously I'm not paying any attention to the whole matter of it because I've been exposing the Epstein gig for about 10 years. So it's not new to me. Most of it anyway. I've got copious amounts of it up on the website. The little black book's been up on the website for quite a few years. Redacted and unredacted. But now we can see there's images of him in Israel, fully alive, which is, as I said all along, he's not dead. These people don't die. They're just moving into another position. Same with Charlie Kirk. No, I don't believe he's dead. Not for a second. And of course, his estranged wife, or still his wife, was talking about Charlie Kirk, and yes, it was sad that he died, but I'm so upset and crying because everybody's attacking Israel. You know, the mask of these people is just dropping to pieces. It's falling off everywhere, and hopefully people are starting to see this, because if you don't, you're just going to waste your time. Waste your time and energy. And, you know, Islam, and I've said this before, in my town, it's mainly Pakistanis and Kashmiris, or at least it was when the communities were being set up. You've two tribes. You've got the Chowdhury, who are the extorted minions by these mosques, and then you've got the Rajas, who benefit from the extortion of the Chowdhuries, the working class, general run-of-the-mill people, because the extortion by the mosque is then being handed to the Rajas to go and expand the capital of the mosque. They're the boys with ISIS. They're the boys with the bankers. They're already in place and well played. And I know who a lot of them are because they've shown themselves to me in the sense that they attacked me a couple of years ago and they meant it. But that didn't go down very well either. And now I see the bigger picture. And I can see who they all are. You know, that's the way it is. So even in the Muslim community itself, you've got the victims, the extorted, the community, by the mosque, who then gives it to the Rajas to spend at will as long as the bank's capital is being expanded. So Tommy the Tit has gone. He's worked for the Mossad, who also controls the level of political Islam. And while you didn't see that, you weren't seeing the real game. Now, if you can start to see that, you can see 100% that what Tommy were working for was in order to divert your attention from the real perpetrators of this shit show, which is the forces that run Israel, who, in truth, have got nothing to do with the Mosaic Law or the Torah and the followers of Moses. These are the elites out of Babylon who created a temple in the Levant to control those tribes, and that temple was demolished by a chap called Yeshua with Rome. And that's basically these last 2,000 years, if chronology is correct, it's took them that long to regroup, refocus and retake the entire globe through the machinations of such like the Sassoons and the Kadori and the Dangur, who are way wealthier than the Western branch and trustees of the Exelok system, the House of Rothschild. I've put a brilliant video up on the Facebook today. I strongly suggest, if you are interested in properly understanding just what is moving this shit show, you will get a good insight into a lot of what I've spoken about over these years on these live streams, and you get it from somebody else. So, and it goes right in depth. I can still see that it's a little bit of a, perhaps because the data's come out, they've actually been forced to present their own, because there's a lot of information that I've seen in it that's not there, that should be there. So maybe that video in and of itself is a propaganda hit just to put you off the scent, because there's no mention of the Exelok system. In fact, it's only about the Sassoons, when in fact if you look at the system, it would appear the Dangors are a higher level than the Sassoons. But we don't know that for sure. Who knows what goes on in them? But, as I've said before, if you could see it, it's only a front. The real hidden royalty in this system, we would class as Phoenicians. These are the merchants that had their empire entirely on the seas. They ran Carthage, they set up Islam. Yeah, they took over Rome. So it's Phoenician. There is the hidden royalty that this whole system shields. And because, of course, they're using the three religions to oppose each other to keep them busy, then we get to see Rothschild, we get to see Sassoon, we get to see all these Rockefellers, all these big families. But in fact, what they are is just a front. The hidden royalty, we don't get to see. And they are the elders at the back of this game. And they are, without a doubt, Phoenician in origin. Now, tonight, we're going to look a little bit more in depth at the Medici clan. Because, of course, I've spoken about it many times. I have presented data on certain streams just to give you an idea of what I'm saying being correct. But tonight we're going to give you a little bit more of an in-depth study, because the clan was twofold. Basically, was the clan. There was the elder Medici clan and the younger Medici clan, and it's understanding how that plays out that you get an idea of why we're in such a mess and why 80% of the aristocracy on Blighty, including the incumbent royals, are actually, in fact, all tied to Charles II, who himself is of the blood of Maria de Medici. So it's very important, this clan. Far more important than I think people think, which, of course, that's exactly how it would be meant to be. So we'll just further that. It's not a big, long gig, so I'm not going to bore you stupid. But you will get a bit more of a fix on what I've been saying and why it's important that we do analyse this clan. Because not only did they take France through Catherine, but they then sort of went off into the background. And remember, Catherine de Medici was the one who financed and pulled into the fore Nostradamus, who himself was of the Jewish clan. So whatever information we didn't get to see, Catherine surely got it, and my guess would be that they put themselves into the background because that was exactly the strategy that had been created through the insights given to them by Nostradamus. But it didn't die, and it's massive. It's all over Europe. And of course, as we know, the majority of monarchs since Victoria have also been sired by the Rothschilds. So it's quite a mix. You know, this is how they've removed the old Christian stock, you might say, and pulled them into this Exolite system, which, of course, the Noahide system that I pap on about all the time is but the control mechanism of this Exolite system. So hopefully it's starting to make sense to people now. All these little snippets that you've been getting over these years, we've managed to pull it together so it's concise and you can see it yourself, and also you can now run off and research particular points of data that I've pulled in and see for yourself, which is what it's all about. It's just about awakening people to what the hell's really going on so you don't feed the wrong energy, like Tommy. So first we'll just have a little run through, excuse me, what's actually happened with Tommy this week. And we'll go to a rag called the Canary. Very, you might say, left wing, but they do put some pretty good stuff up, I have to say. So this is this week's. Tommy claims to be on the run from ISIS. So somebody has tweeted, Tommy Robinson has left the country. Apparently ISIS is targeting him and he's asking for donations for the relocation and the ongoing security costs. Okay. And Tommy's tweet then is cited and he says, Breaking news. I am a priority target for ISIS. I have now left the country. I need time to work things out for my safety and the safety of my family. I will probably have to relocate them. Give us your money. I will update you when I can. Please can you help with this and any donations for security costs. So there we go again. He's not stopped his begging. He's been around them PCIs for far too long. He's actually now a PCI. So let's have a look what he had to say.
So I'm out of the UK, and for the foreseeable future, I guess, a minute, until I work out what the hell to do. I guess this is probably the most serious, because this is a manual that goes out to every ISIS operative, every terrorist downloads it. It's like the Inspire magazine, which was Al-Qaeda's one, this is ISIS's one. And then they're told what to do and who to target. So I guess I'll be a target, so any of my, well, not guess, I am their target, so any of my locations, where I be, I simply can't be in the UK because I'll be putting my loved ones in danger. So,
you see, you wouldn't even use the term, I guess. If he, as he said, the police have given him a warning, it wouldn't be in your vocabulary to say, I guess. So he's full of shit, he's lying. Hopefully it's because it's the blighties that he can now see have seen through him.
UK for the foreseeable future. I don't know where I'll be long term at the minute. I just got the hell out of there. I need to sort lots of things out now. So, suitcase ready. Teach you one and all, because I need him back, really. But, yeah, thank you to anyone who supports me in these situations, yeah?
Oh, dear. Urban Scoop, news support Tommy Robinson. Please support Tommy and his family due to severe security concerns. Oh dear heck. Oh. Elon will help you. Elon will send you some shekels, I'm sure. Honestly, it's ridiculous really. But right, it says... Oh, what have I just done here? I've just opened Zoom like a lunatic. I'm getting worse. I can't even see my own little symbols. So we'll just close that off, because I obviously shouldn't have done that. Get off. It's not going off. Right, we're off. And it says, we don't know why we're giving him advice, but Tommy Robinson, if you're on the run from international death squads, don't publish a video from the airport you're flying out of. Have you thought this one through, mate? So in Tommy's own words, he is a priority target for ISIS. We don't know Tommy Robinson. It seems they've got bigger things to worry about. But since they lost the caliphate, we're pretty sure we talk about Robinson more than ISIS does. And we wouldn't even say he's one of our priority targets. So this is the canary, of course, telling you this. Given the situation, many people are making the same point about Robinson's predicament. And then we get a post from Ginger Tootsie, whoever that is. Is he seeking a safe country while unable to financially support himself? Well. And then we have some cited where he's giving it the big, I have now left the country, blah, 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 blah. Give me your money. Benny Dreadful says, just to confirm, fighting age man, Tommy Robinson, feels unsafe here, so he has fled to another country, leaving his family behind. Sadly, the delicious irony of this will be lost on his low IQ gang of fanboys. And cites another Tommy tweet. He's going to update us when he can. So he has run off and left his kids. That's not the way I'd work it out if that were me, but I certainly won't be running off anyway. Breaking, Tommy Robinson really needs money for his next luxury holiday, says Gadget. And again, cites his, please give us your money. And Tommy Robinson is lying about something else. Now, we can't really see that, but if I go on here, I might be able to. Now, a week after a jury cleared Palestine action of breaking the police lady's back with a sledgehammer, even though it was all recorded on a body cam. Today the UK has ruled it unlawful to ban them doing this stuff. Let that sink in. So he's just pointing out that there's been a bit of a kickback in favour of the branch of the Mossad, the Palestinian mob, are now allowed to be a mob because, of course, they have this word Islam. And they're allowed to because, of course, if you say anything against it, then you're classed as Islamophobia. Okay, so they're shifting it. So maybe the ship's sailing and the Jews are off. That's basically what's happening. And the mob of Palestine are now going to take centre stage. He says there is a simple explanation to all this, and it's that his family already left him. 2 things on Tommy Robinson fleeing UK to protect his family, says Kathleen Tyson. 1, he permanently moved his family from UK to Spain back in 2020, 5 years and 7 months ago. 2, his marriage ended in divorce in 2021. Tommy doesn't have to worry about ISIS. Never in history has ISIS attacked. And then it's not there. Mary O'Nofal says Tommy Robinson has reportedly fled the UK, cited himself as a top priority ISIS target. He's left the country to ensure his own safety and that of his family, and merely need to relocate them permanently. So who's telling fibs here? And people have accused Tommy Robinson of telling porkies on the grounds that Tommy Robinson claims he's fled the UK due to death threats from ISIS. But then he said, I guess, so that means it's garbage. ISIS is a Mossad CIA operation that has never attacked Israel. The truth is, Tommy is not a tax resident of the UK and must leave the UK to avoid paying taxes. Mossad gave him a nice excuse. There he is with his Mossad t-shirt on. Oh dear heck. Reported on Israel recent links with ISIS, Ed Sykes wrote for the Canary. A week ago, Mint Press News reported that Israel had been supporting extremist criminal militias in Gaza with links to Daesh or ISIS as they looted humanitarian aid. And now Israeli politicians, including war criminal Prime Minister Benjamin Miloukowski himself, are essentially confirming that. Oh, are they now? On Robinson's link to Israel, we covered his notorious humiliation tour of Israel, which took place in October of 2025. Did you get that? I'll say that again. On Robinson's links to Israel, we covered his notorious humiliation tour of Israel, which took place in October 2025. This saw many of his would-be compatriots on the far right raging about Robinson's behaviour. Those gunning for little Tommy included the chinless remigration enthusiast Steve Laws, who I have no idea who he is. So he had a bit of a humiliating tour of Israel. Steve Laws says, look at this Zionist piece of shit sat there letting these savages talk shit about us. Ah, so that's the one that we cited before, but not as a video, but as an image, where he's being spoken to by this rabbi about how shit the British are and how we're going to be suffering. I think that's what he's citing. Is that an actual video? Let's have a listen. Oh, because we didn't actually listen to that, did we? Okay. It looks like it is. Where are we? Where's the...
On the one hand, they really helped give birth to the Jewish state in World War I. The Balfour Declaration, the San Remo Accords, the mandate for a Jewish Palestine, the UK was at the forefront of that. And then they turned on us.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
They turned on us, man. And therefore they have a special place in hell for turning on the Jewish people. You were like doing this great thing. You were helping Israel be reborn after 2,000 years of exile, and it was, you know, it was a biblical value. It was also a defense for a UK value, but it all turned on us. Can we turn it back?
Can we turn it back? The British government have just turned on Israel. But
they've been turning on us for a long time.
Yeah, but when we say they, it's the British government. So let's separate the people from the establishment. The establishment have turned. It's like when the American establishment were in power under Joe Biden. The American people didn't support that. The British public don't support what the British government have just done. If it was put to a democratic vote on whether the British public wished to recognise the state of Palestine, it would be a resounding no. It would be a resounding no. So the people haven't turned on Israel. The people haven't turned on Jews. The left-wing establishment have turned because they're appeasing their bloc vote and they're appeasing their future vote.
Would that be a left-wing government run by the Jew Jimmy Savile's vagina, a.k.a. Keir Starmer? Well, yes, it would actually. Well. But I think there were a bit more to it than that, and that's just a part, but we didn't get the video before, but now we've had the video. Okay, so... yeah, alright. All the best to Tommy Robinson anyway in his battle to stop doxing himself. And that's the end of that report, and we'll give him no more kudos in any way, shape or form. I just hope people have started to recognise that, honestly, this guy's a complete lunatic. and he's never been on your side. He's just been there to cause trouble and divert you off the fact that Israel controls America, controls here, Europe, the EU, China, India, Pakistan, everywhere. Now, I actually did put this up on, because people don't realise this kind of stuff, but let me just... So there's a family called the Zamans, and they've controlled huge swathes of the area that we class as Persia, but it's the Zamans are not Muslims, because of course they're small hats, and they controlled the Durrani Empire, which was one of the largest Islamic empires in the world. It encompasses parts of northern India, Afghanistan, much of Pakistan, and Iranian Khorasan. This ties them to Iran's current rulers. Now, anybody that knows history in relation to what went on before Pakistan existed, then the British Empire or East India Companies or Rothschilds, they partitioned India and created Pakistan. So obviously whoever these Zamans are, because of course the PCIs, were also operating for the East India Companies. And they created the partition in that part of the world, causing huge amounts of death. It was ridiculous, the amount of death that went on when they partitioned India and created Pakistan. So there you go again, all you people that are coming over from all that area, whether it's Afghanistan, India, Pakistan, you're still under the empire. You are the empire, and I've said this before. You come over here hating the empire, but it's the empire that's brought you here because you're working for it. Our time with empire ended a long, long time ago. None of us alive today, here on Blighty, were ever a part of what you call the British Empire. You are. And that's what's been moving you around the world as immigrants. The empire. You are the empire. Get a grip. What else can I say to that? You know, you've got to get your shit together. Otherwise, you're being shafted. And you're being shafted by the very force that you think you despise. How clever is that? Right, so we'll check who's coming, then we'll get cracked on with this dip our toes into this Medici clan, because it is important that we get to understand the power of this family. So Mew says, Sunday welcome one, and hi all. Hi Sean, evening Mew. Kerry says, love from Ireland, evening Sam. Upward says, good evening Sean and all, evening Upward. PY says, good evening all, evening Paul. Slipknot says, right Sean, everyone, evening Slipknot. Paul Sefter says, good evening Sean, mods, chats and viewers. Evening Paul. DJ from 88. How do Sean folks from sunny Yorkshire? Well, how do DJ from 88 from sunny Lancashire? Maroon Fox. Evening all. Evening Maroon Fox. Anthony says, evening Sean, mods, friends, chat participants. Evening Anthony. Mew says, hit the like. Yep, hit that like button. Upward says, the frame is off. The surgeon got it off in 8 minutes, record time, but very painful. But I live to tell the tale. I bet that's... God, you've had that on some time, buddy. Bet you're glad to get that off. Evening Sean, the chat says June. Evening June. That's good news and relief upwards, says Anthony. Jane says, good evening Sean, David, mods, chatters and lurkers. Evening Jane. Paul O'Neill says, Tommy is a good fisherman. He casts that line and there are many that bite and keep biting. Yeah, I mean, let's just hope that people are really starting to get a grip now, or just how this game really plays. Mr. Jim Drinksy said, evening Sean, each and all, evening to you. Beanbuster says, hi Sean, Biggie here, hope you are well, my friend. Been having some me time after a hectic 18 years of studying this stuff, back on top again now. I'm wishing all of you well, evening Biggie, good to see you back. It is good to have a rest, of course, as well. Beanbuster says, I'm you, hope you're well, no problem. Gaius, hello Gaius, how are you doing my friend? Christ may have been a descendant of Cleopatra, the 7th Ptolemy, according to author Ralph Ellis. Now, I have read a lot of Ralph Ellis's work, Gaius, and I have to say, he began quite well. I quite enjoyed his take on a lot of things, but I have to say, that was probably his early stuff, and I think somewhere down the line, either he went off track or that was the agenda all along. And when I looked at his, I'm talking probably 10 years ago when I had another look at his, I really didn't like what he was speaking and what he was writing. And I'd put him in the same sort of measure as the likes of Sitchin and such. So, yeah, early stuff, definitely. But that's because what he was saying mainly about Skolta wasn't his work. It was taken from older efforts. But, of course, it's entirely up to you. But, yeah, Yeshua, I don't know. But I do know he was initiated by the Druids of Albion, which is why Rome backed him and they destroyed the temple. Because, of course, what he presented in the Levant was exactly what was already existent here on Albion and had been so for a long time, and it wasn't called Christian. It was just the original law in sync with the Creator. And for those that were seeking reality from the image already cast in man, and the reason why he said he was the Son of Man, not the Son of God, that's Zeus. Jesus. So, I think that's going to be an hard one for folk to reckon with, because it's so embedded in people's minds to call in Zeus, Zeus's son, instead of the Son of Man. So thanks for that, Gaius. Always good to see you. Where are we now? Let's have a look. DJ Mate says, did Wobbly Thomason escape in his Bentley that all the gullible paid for? No, I think he went in that, his son's, because his Bentley, if you remember, he's broken. That's why he needed a load of money last time. So unfortunately, he were off in his little son's gig because he didn't have time to get the Bentley fixed. There were no MOT on it. Anyway, there we go. So there you go. Jonathan Family Smith says Charlie Veach got arrested for thought crime. Well, I remember Charlie Veach way back in the day when he was part of the Thought Police. His partner were brilliant. I don't mean Rudy partner, he was another male. And they were brilliant. And so this is about 2008, and they went around London loving everybody, hugging everybody, and it was quite good. It was really good to see. It were a great break from all the madness that were going on. We Are Change, all this anonymous stuff that were getting quite excitable. And they were like a breath of fresh air. Now, I don't follow any of these people. I don't really follow anybody, I have to be honest. But AMG did mention a few months ago, perhaps, that Charlie Veach wasn't a good egg. And I have to say, I've watched a couple of his things, and I thought to myself, well, you're causing trouble. He's actually going out of his way. Fine if he was just going out and just recording, but, he's sort of, in a sense, sort of encouraging it. So maybe he got arrested for something else. He's probably been causing a bit of trouble there, and maybe not, but I don't know. Right, so for thought crime. Well, fair enough. You see, if these people spent a little bit more time studying their own rights and the law and such, but having said that, there's some serious games going on with this system now. They're really not playing properly. Somebody sent me some updates on a few acts on the statute books in relation to Marburg, the next crazy nonsense, which, given the democide video we put up the other week, could be relevant because we head into March. But they've changed quite a lot of updates to certain acts or statutes on the statute book that are quite worrying. In fact, I'll put the links up under the video, and so you can have a look at them yourself. I didn't really get a chance to give them too much of an investigation because I've been putting this together today. I did have got them earlier in the week. I might have been able to present them in a manner that we could have had a look at, but definitely worth a look, and I will put them up under the video so you can have a look just to see if it does support the data that we presented in that democide video. Where are we? So Anthony says, another IQ test for the gullible fools to support a PCI who at the first alleged threat ups and runs away. Scripted. Should tell the blind fools all they need to know of their pedestaled anti-hero. But it doesn't. I mean, the money is made off the gullible. It's quite ridiculous, really. Anthony DeMorse says, evening, mates. Evening, Anthony. And DJ from 88 is laughing. Well, that's fair enough. We like a bit of laughter in the old wise asylum. So, okay, so we'll have a look at this just to give you the picture, the image of the power of these families that have been, you might say, behind the Vatican since the Middle Ages. You know, once the Solomons got these crusades going. But, as I've said before, the initial reasoning for the crusades was essential. I mean, Islam had gone crazy. It invaded something like 28 countries in the space of 3 years. It were on the march and it had to be stopped. But the Templars were set up originally to go and seek knowledge that they'd realised were buried. And they did seek it, and they found it, and it was how to set up the Babylonian banking system, which they did. And then it all went against them. But, as I've said before, it's clear that there's two sets of Templar. There's the Christian Templars that came out of Blighty, or rather England, France, Germany, etc., or Europe. And then, of course, you've got the Solomon Templars that came out of Aquitaine, tied to the Normans. And they took a foothold in Scotland thanks to Robert the Bruce. So you had two sets of Templars. And if you want the symbolism for that, then Scottish Templarism is based entirely on Solomon's Temple, which is rectangle, and yet the English Templars built the inner city church, which is round and sanctioned to Mary, the mother of Christ. So there's definitely a demarcation, and I believe that the removal of the Templars in 1306 or whatever it were was the Solomon Templars demolishing the Christian power in the banking system. And that's how I've seen it in history, and that's hopefully how I've presented it. But after that madness, we of course get the power of the Venetians rising, who set up the first banking or mint in Venice and began to pretty much take over Europe through usury. But this family is very important, very important indeed, and I've said it many times before. The Pallavicini are also a very important family in relation to these isles. The House Stanley, or the Earls of Derby, were operating for the Pallavicini, and they were responsible for putting the Tudors on the throne. We've gone through all this data in many live streams in the past, but I just thought we would just expand on this Medici clan. Now, Catherine de Medici is probably the most famous because she was the power in France. She wasn't actually the monarch herself, but she had the power behind the monarchs, and she held power in France for quite a long time. Now, thorns beneath the crown, Catherine de Medici, or the Serpent Queen, as she was known. The Medici family's origin is rooted in the Mugello region of the Tuscan countryside, north of Florence. Agricultural roots, the family began as relatively obscure middle-class peasants or landowners in the agricultural valley of Mugello. The earliest record, their name first appears in a historical document dated of 1230. Etymology, the name Medici is the plural of medico, or doctor. While legends suggest they were descendants of a knight of Charlemagne or were ancient physicians, these claims are largely considered unfounded myths or slanders created by rivals to highlight their humble beginnings. The family moved to Florence around 1200 to engage in commerce, specifically the wool trade and money changing. Well, you know, when anybody that's classed as coming from an obscure nothing and is involved in money changing and commerce, I'm sorry, but that's the diversion. These guys are full-blooded PCIs, or purveyors of compound interests, for those who haven't been on these streams for that long. The rise to prominence. The true ascent began in 1397 when Giovanni di Bicci de' Medici founded the Medici Bank in Florence. Mythical and disputed claims. Charlemagne connection. One legend claims the Bowls Palais on the family crest represent dents in the shield of an ancestor who fought a giant for Charlemagne. Greek origin. There have been modern queries regarding a potential Greek origin, but historians confirm they are indigenously Tuscan. Afro-European ancestry. Historical evidence and modern research suggests Alessandro de' Medici, the first Duke of Florence, may have been of mixed race descent, born to a woman of African heritage. Now, I've put a link there, which is an excellent read. Now, it's Encyclopedia Britannica, and it's the 11th edition. So, we're looking at the highly edited and censored edition, because, of course, the Last Concise Britannica series, before the Rothschilds took it over, is the 9th edition. So, the 9th edition is the last and final Encyclopedia Britannica volume that wasn't edited by the agents of the Rothschilds, and that's important to know. It was sold to Hooper and Jackson, and after the split of Horace Everett Hooper continued to manage the Encyclopedia Britannica until his death in 1922 under Grolier Inc. The rights were managed by Sears Roebuck for 18 years, 1920, 23, 28 and 43. So the 9th edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica is where you don't want any other after that if you're going to use Britannica as a source. And let me tell you now, the Encyclopedia Britannica was an amazing source of information on historical context. And in truth, I got a lot of my information way back in the day by studying those volumes, which, of course, back then I got from the library. But all of a sudden, there's no mention of Jewry, PCIs, usury, and the roles in opium, etc. It's gone after the 9th, or it starts to get diluted. So it is important that you recognise that, but that link there is amazing. It's an excellent study of the House Medici, but keep in mind the fact that it being the 11th edition series, it's obviously been diluted somewhat. Coming out of nowhere and not claiming Iranian ancestry, suggests Phoenician origin. Split into two branches, the elder and the younger. So anything that comes out of nowhere, peasantry, given a peasantry background, but then it's into banking and commerce, is Phoenician. And what we're seeing here, when you see this kind of thing, what you're seeing then is the sort of cadet branches of this hidden royalty that are full-blown Phoenicians. Okay, so majority of, now interesting, the Medicis didn't claim any heritage from Iran, whereas quite a lot of the Holy See families do. But came in out of nowhere, banking, commerce, these guys are definitely a cadet branch of the hidden royalty of Phoenician origin. So the Phoenicians, as far as I'm concerned. So there's basically two branches, the elder and the younger. The elder obviously were the branch that created the wealth, while the younger branch demolished it, at least in Florence. But that was in a chronological game. Now, Catherine is of the elder. So Catherine de' Medici is of the elder branch bloodline. Now, Maria, which is important to Blighty, because Charles II was blood, her blood, and the majority of the aristocracy on Blighty, including this current incumbent family, are all blood related to Charles II's bastards. They're all bastard illegitimate lines, okay? They are not proper sanctioned monarchs on this land, and it's been so for a very long time, okay? Charles II, this is after Civil War, remember. This is before William and Mary even, okay? So that's how long we've had these tossers, and Charles II was a Stuart. It was to getting the Stuarts on the throne here, after they got the Tudors on, that pulled Scotland into the fray. Okay, and this were all carried out by House Palafossini, another Venetian Holy See family, banking elite. So they have a major play on Blighty, these families. So Catherine is of the elder branch, while Maria is of the younger, and this is going to become important as we move forward. The younger branch I don't know what I've written there. But the younger branch invited. So once the elder branch had sort of lost power, the younger branch took over. These people were rather odd. They were nothing like the commerce sense of the older branch, which had moved through Catherine into France, basically. They'd gone further into Europe. But this younger branch of nutjobs carried on the game in Florence and Tuscany and around that area. And as it moves further on, you can see that actually it's this branch that got itself tied into Jewry by inviting them in. And towards the end, one of the I don't think it was Alessandro, I can't remember which one, but one of the final ones, he were obsessed with the conversions of these Jews to Catholicism. So you can see that the younger branch was the method by which the House Medici completely enveloped itself within this converso, Sabbatai Zevi, Jacob Frank, pretend conversion to Catholicism that were going on in Florence and Tuscany. So that's northern Italy. Okay, and Venice. So this is where you can see that this younger branch, the reason why it's carried on and it's been so potent is because it meshed itself in that lot direct. Whereas the older branch basically got into Europe, into France, and that's through Catherine and Medici. And again, so you can see it's a very potent family, this. And through Maria, which is of the younger branch, this is where they have major power since Charles II on Blighty. Okay, so this is your aristocrats. 80% you could say are all full-blooded bastard lines of this clan. And they made it so they had a huge play on the agenda of conversion. This is how it got mashed in. Hence the attachment of the younger to the Jewish communities. That said, the Phoenicians, in my opinion, are the hidden royalty atop the Exarch system, to which the Noahide laws are subservient. They're just the control mechanism. The theology for the outer circle, you might say. January the 5th, 1589. Catherine de Medici died in a shadowed splendour of Paris, having spent nearly 7 decades surviving and shaping the most dangerous courts in Europe. Orphaned within weeks of her birth, imprisoned as a child during the convulsions of the Italian wars, she'd been a pawn before she could even speak. But this girl had iron in her spine. Married at 14 to Henry, the second son of the King of France, Catherine vanished into the jewelled corridors of the Valois court, mocked for her merchant blood and Italian manners. Merchant blood. What does that mean? Okay, we know exactly what it means. Yet when Henry unexpectedly ascended the throne and then died in a freak jousting accident in 1559, the court discovered too late that the little Italian girl had learned how to rule in the dark. For the next 30 years, Catherine ruled France from behind the throne. Never crowned, but never powerless. As Queen, Mother and Regent, she governed through a succession of fragile sons, Francis II dead before adulthood, Charles IX anxious and malleable, and Henry III theatrical and desperate for control. She steered the state through religious civil war, playing Catholic against Huguenot, in a kingdom tearing itself apart. She brokered marriages, forged alliances, and spun webs of influence from shadowed corridors, while outwardly draped in piety. Catherine surrounded herself with astrologers and apothecaries, of course Nostradamus being the main one, cultivating a reputation for poison and prophecy that kept rivals uneasy. When her daughter married the Protestant Henry of Navarre in 1572 to seal a fragile peace, Catherine stood at the centre of the catastrophe that followed. The St. Bartholomew's Day massacre may not have been her design, but it unfolded with her consent and another brutal calculation in a lifetime of them. In her final years, dressed in unrelenting black, Catherine became a living emblem of mourning and monarchy. Ooh, who else did that? Victoria. You see, people think they were out of the picture. That's when they were doing their worst. A widow who never stopped governing. Her power was not absolute, but it was everywhere. Subtle, winding, and inescapable. She negotiated with popes and princes, outlasted conspiracies, and preserved the Valois dynasty long past its natural expiration. Her enemies called her a schemer, a poisoner, a Machiavellian queen. But Catherine understood what many of her male contemporaries did not, that survival itself can be a form of dominion. She died at 69, just months before her last son was assassinated and the Valois line collapsed. But for a generation she had held France together with nothing but will, grief and guile. Catherine de Medici, life before, the Serpent Queen. Now, they say that it collapsed and disappeared, but did it? I'd say not, because of course the younger branch were very busy and being used then to front this PCI system that were being shoved across European monarchy, especially this place, once they got the Tudors on, and especially once they got the Stuarts on. But at this time as well, back in those days, there was a family called Thurn under Taxis. And they were a mighty family in and of themselves. But when you look into them, they acted more as an intelligence web. They were everywhere, in everything. And of course, tied to Catherine de Medici. So even though, in my opinion, the Medici went into the background after Catherine disappeared, what she'd created was bigger and more powerful than ever, but was moving in the shadows across Europe, while the younger branch was being pushed across Blighty through the aristocracies. The mere mention of her name would send trickles of ice-cold fear down the spines of her enemies, and probably her friends too. Catherine was one of the most influential ladies of her time, and not always for the greatest reasons. As a child, this shy and unsure girl went from being a prisoner of war to the deadly Serpent Queen of France. Born in April 1519 in Florence, Italy, Catherine was the first and only child of Lorenzo de Medici, Duke of Urbino, and Madeleine de la Tour d'Auvergne, the Countess of Boulogne. Her parents were ecstatic to welcome the daughter into the royal world. Sadly, a month after their cherished baby girl was born, both of Catherine's parents became ill and died. Interesting. Now an orphan, the little Medici heiress was passed around several different relatives and convents in an effort to protect the young girl from enemies of the family. Although Catherine moved from relative to relative, she didn't have a bad life. She was well cared for, safe and loved. In 1527, the Medici power was threatened when Catherine's uncle Pope Clement was overthrown by Cardinal Silvio Passerini. Catherine's peaceful childhood came crashing down in a matter of days. Taken hostage by the Passerini forces, Catherine had to say goodbye to the comfortable, sheltered life she had and was now a prisoner living in captivity. In 1529, Florence was completely surrounded by King Charles' forces, which had dire consequences for the captive Catherine. Some soldiers felt that Catherine's status as a political prisoner was far too comfortable. Chaining her, raping her, or even killing her would be much more effective response to the situation. Catherine grew increasingly terrified of the disturbing situation she found herself in. In 1530, anti-Medici armies stormed the nunnery where Catherine was being held hostage. They debated whether the 11-year-old heiress should be killed there and then or sent to a brothel. Sending her to a brothel would mess up the Pope's plans of marrying Catherine to a prestigious royal suitor. Fortunately, however, later that same year, Florence surrendered and Catherine was freed. Catherine was taken to Rome and reunited with her uncle Pope Clement, who was thrilled to see her again. While she was now safe, her adventurous life was about to take a turn. Her uncle was already looking for an influential husband for his niece. Now, historical accounts of our little heiress often claims that Catherine wasn't particularly the nicest royal beauty that anyone had ever seen. Catherine was small and thin, with no delicate features, and had the protruding eyes of the Medici family. Others mentioned that she was quite undeveloped in her structure, completely ignoring the fact that this was a little girl that they were talking about. Needless to say, these descriptions were for the most part shared by men, and were rushing to get this little girl married off to the highest bidder. Naturally, Pope Clement did his thing. He searched across several neighbouring countries for a potential suitor for his young niece. When the French King Francis I offered a marriage between his second son Henry and the young Catherine, the Pope was ecstatic. Excuse me. While King Francis' second son wasn't quite in the running to be king at this point, the orphan Catherine was considered practically a commoner. Beggars, of course, can't be choosers. Quickly, the preparations for the wedding began taking place. On 1st September 1533, Catherine was sent to France. As well as a dowry of 100,000 gold écus, Uncle Clement also provided Catherine with furniture, carpets, ornaments, and works of art, as well as magnificent jewels. These included enormous diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and the famous pearls that Catherine would later give to her daughter-in-law, Mary, Queen of Scots. Now, Mary, Queen of Scots was actually quite a beautiful woman. A bit crazy, but she was a good-looking word compared to Elizabeth I, who looked like a fella. In fact, she could have been a fella. Just excuse me a sec, will you guys, because sorry about that. Catherine's trousseau was of the finest fabrics. The Marquis of Mantua, Isabel d'Este, famous for his style and taste, sent large quantities of gold, silver, and silk to Florence for its artisans to embroider and make into exquisite dresses. Underwear and black and crimson bed sheets, brocade and damask abounded. So extravagant, in fact, was Catherine's trousseau that a tax had to be imposed to help cover the costs. On the 28th of October 1533, Catherine de Medici married Henry, Duke of Orleans. Both bride and groom were just 14 years old. The outrageously fancy ceremony took place at the Église Saint-Pharaon les Augustins in Marseille. The celebrations included every extravagant thing one can think of. Exotic foods were on the menu, crazy gifts, expensive gifts, and much, much more. Both Catherine and Henry danced through the night and seemed to click right away. Some would say that this was a match made in heaven. Of course, they would learn soon enough that that wasn't the case. The 14-year-old couple left the wedding ball at midnight to perform the nuptial duties. At the time, there was no way of knowing that the little sweet Catherine would grow up to become a fearsome serpent queen in the French court. And there is an actual link there, and then there's a source, which I couldn't get to link without going through Apple, so I didn't bother. Again, interesting to just go through that, if this is interesting for you. Now, that's Catherine. Now, Charles II was a descendant of Maria de Medici. Doesn't seem a bad chap, really. He was just a shagger. This guy could perform. But they were all bastards. He had, some say 14 bastards, but 12 have actually been acknowledged and all given title. But my guess is he had a hell of a lot more than that as well. So Shaggy Charlie boy, there he is. Looking very big conked, as they do. Charles II was the son of King Charles I and Henrietta Maria of France, who was the youngest daughter of Henry IV of France and Marie de Medici. Charles II was noted for his dark complexion, which was believed to be a throwback to his Italian ancestors, the Medici, Dukes of Tuscany. Marie de Medici's role. Marie de Medici was the grandmother of Charles II. Godmother. And Charles II had many mistresses and acknowledged at least 12 illegitimate children. So there's just a little glimpse into this ancestors of Marie de Medici. Remember, this is the younger clan branch, not the elder clans that Catherine's from. It is important that we distinguish the two, to be honest. So that's just an insight. They've got a few more links, which again are interesting if you want to study this a little bit in depth. And this is supposedly, but it's supposed to be the Flossie. But then it says possibly Maria de Medici with your younger brother Antonio in a posthumous portrait by Agnolo Bronzino. So if that is hers, you're not a bad-looking floss. But they all have strange fingers, don't they? Have you noticed what weird fingers they have? Unless that's just the way they painted them. No, the claim is that the Medici family line ended in Tuscany with the death of Anna Maria Lucia di Medici in 1743, and there's a link. However, his acknowledged illegitimate offspring are numerous and thus had a bloodline and were given title. So, I've missed that out there. I should have said Charles II acknowledged it. So, it's because of Charles II that we've got this massive branch of illegitimate bastards all related to Maria de Medici. So these are the 12 illegitimate children that were recognised. So we've got James Scott, 1st Duke of Monmouth. And you'll notice it's all Aggie Shaggers gig. Oh, and you know, England gets the blame for everything. The entire gig since the Stuarts got on the gig has been jocks. It's quite ridiculous. So James Scott, 1st Duke of Monmouth, he had 9 offspring himself. James Scott, Earl of Dalkeith. Now, Dalkeith is where I used to go on the conferences. It's a lovely place, by the way. Henry Scott, 1st Earl of Deloraine. James Crofts and Henrietta Paulet, Duchess of Bolton. But he had 9. Yeah? So these are his illegitimate 12, and they all had little shitbags as well. And now this is where you get your aristocracy today, you see. These are all your dames and your baronesses that are in the lords. The hoity-toits that are running the duchies and this shit. This is who these people are. Nothing to do with English. They're not English. And this is why we're in such a mess. So there's a link to that fella. Then we've got Charlotte Paston, Countess of Yarmouth. She had Stuart Warburg Howard, Charles Paston, Lord Paston, Lady Charlotte Paston, Lady Rebecca Paston, and Honourable William Paston. And there's your link to them. Charles Fitzcharles, 1st Earl of Plymouth. Right, so I don't think he had any flosses, little flea bags. Catherine Fitzcharles. I don't think she had any flosses either, flea bags. Charles Fitzroy, 2nd Duke of Cleveland. He had Lady Grace Fitzroy, Countess of Torlingham, and she married Henry Vane, Earl of Darlington. The grandson later became William Vane, 1st Duke of Cleveland. William Fitzroy, 3rd Duke of Cleveland and 2nd Duke of Southampton. No issue, the title went extinct. Lord Charles Fitzroy, Lord Henry Fitzroy, Lady Anne Fitzroy, who married John Paddy. Lady Barbara Fitzroy died unmarried, and there's your link to Charles. Then we have Henry Fitzroy, 1st Duke of Grafton, and he had a son, Charles Fitzroy, 2nd Duke of Grafton. And there's your link. Charlotte Lee, Countess of Lichfield. Charlotte Lee, Lady Baltimore. Charles Lee, Viscount Quarrendon. Edward Lee, Viscount Quarrendon. Captain Honourable James Lee. Honourable Francis Lee. Lady Anne Morgan. Honourable Charles Lee. George Lee, 2nd Earl of Lichfield. Honourable Francis Henry Fitzroy Lee. Lady Elizabeth Young. No relation as far as I know. Barbara Brown, Lady Brown. Lady Marie Lee. Honourable Fitzroy Lee. Honourable Fitzroy Henry Lee. Honourable William Lee. Honourable Thomas Lee. Honourable John Lee. Robert Lee, 4th Earl of Lichfield. That's a lot of Lees. That's a lot of flea bags. And I wonder if General Lee over there in Robert E. Lee in the old Yankee land was, in fact, of that branch. They get about. Like I said, when I first got on Alex Jones way back in about 2008, what the Yanks loved about it is they were holding all these families up and I were bringing them all their history for me, and they loved it. They loved it because they didn't know. So, yeah, Robert Lee, the Lees everywhere. My guess would be, if we were to check, Robert E. Lee would be a part of this branch. They've got about, these buggers. There's a link to them. George Fitzroy, 1st Duke of Northumberland. No legitimate offspring. So none of them were given title, but he had a lot of little flea bags. Charles Beauclerk, 1st Duke of St Albans. He was busy. Charles Beauclerk, 2nd Duke of Albans. St Albans, Lady Diana Beauclerk. Lord William Beauclerk. Vera Beauclerk, 1st Baron Vere. Lord Henry Beauclerk, Lord Sidney Beauclerk, Lord George, Lord Seymour, Lord James, Lord Aubrey Beauclerk. That's a few flea bags going on there. Lady Mary Beauclerk and Lady Anne Beauclerk. My God, his wife must have been a mess by the time she'd finished. Unless he were banging everybody, a bit like Charlie Boy. Charles Lennox, 1st Duke of Richmond, from which Annie Lennox comes forth. I knew I never liked her. And she's got a shit voice anyway, and I think she's crap. And she was bought a live aid, so cursed. So Charles Lennox, 1st Duke, gave us Charles Lennox, 2nd Duke of Richmond. Louisa Lennox, Countess of Berkeley, and Anne Lennox, Countess of Albemarle. And there's your link. Mary Tudor, Countess of Derwentwater. James Radcliffe, 3rd Earl of Derwentwater. Lady Mary Tudor Radcliffe, Charles Radcliffe, 5th Earl of Derwentwater. Honourable Francis Radcliffe, Margaret Frances Disney Rook. Now, don't finish there. Queen Victoria was a great-granddaughter of Charles II, so another. Not only was she sided by a Rothschild, but she's also a Medici. William and Harry. In fact, William will be the first monarch related to Charles II. So another bastard. We've got a lot of bastards with these Williams for some reason. Weird, isn't it? It's the name. Will.I.am. So William and Harry are descendants of Charles II through the mother. By golly. Camilla Shand and her children are also descendants of Charles II, so that's Queen Camilla, they say. Beatrice and Eugenie are descendants of Charles II through the mother. And Princess Alice, Duchess of Gloucester, is also descended from Charles II. But there's a lot more of them. They're all intermingled. A lot of celebrities, stars, all come from this bastard clan, this line of Charles II. You know, and this is why we're in such a mess, people. It's quite ridiculous, you know. And then here we've just got a little bit more. All the Charles recognised offspring were given titles, wealth and good marriages within the aristocracy. Note also the surnames that many of the children were given. Fitzroy means son of king. And Fitzcharles, of course, son of Charles. There was no doubt whose children they were. So this is what a Shagger King looks like. Look at all these flosses. And I think there's probably only Edward VII beat him. That's a few flosses he's got going down there. Isn't it? Any man bread. Yeah. There you go. Now, his favourite, of course, was Nell. His last words, actually, were about Nell. If I remember rightly, when I studied his biography back in the day. And then, of course, you've got quite a few links there to just give you a little bit more data if you are interested in that gig. So that endeth that, but it just gives you a little bit more depth to why it is important that we recognise that what we class as English has nothing to do with England. This is Scottish, this is PCI, this is Venetian. Phoenician. This is who this lot are. And they have took control through usury, murder, child sacrifice, and drinking blood. And stealing names. That's why they were called the name stealers. And there we have it. The Medici clan are alive and kicking and running riot on Blighty. And Tommy Robinson is just another little prick playing for that lot. To divert you off the real game. They've pulled in a lot of nut jobs under Islam to stop you Blighties from getting to them because they're going to. That's what's going to have to be dealt with. And if you're going for Farage, that aftershave, forget it. He's another Tommy Robin tit, arsewipe, who's supporting Trump. Trump is the big boy, King Cyrus, the emancipator of this system, and put it all under the no-hide. Can you see? I don't know who this Robert Lowe is, this MP. He, from what I've seen, he sounds alright. I haven't looked into him. I'll have to look into him because he's another shill. Then we'll have to out him as a shill. But this is the problem we've got on Blighty. If you're English, by definition of the character, i.e. you want the freedoms afforded to English in law, then we have a fucking problem. And that problem is twofold. The PCIs, Rabbinical Judaism, and the front, Islam. Those are the 2 points you're going to have to deal with before you even get down to the nitty-gritty of looking at these hoity-toits. Can you see how far down this game we are? Because our ancestors, recent and past, weren't very bright. They really weren't very bright at all. And the majority of them were knocked off in First World War. And then from the 40s through medical interventions. You know, it's quite ridiculous. But this is where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. And since the 60s, everybody's took their eyes off the ball because they were too busy being hip, and hooray. And I was thinking about it the other day, because, I mean, I promoted the clubs in the 90s. I were into all the clubbing scene. And I promoted the clubs. And, you know, what they did is turn a very masculine English into a bunch of love-lusted numpties that are now in no position to deal with the situation we've got. And the males that were masculine and ready for action, they were the ones that were pulled into drug dealing. They got banged up, they're dead, they're blah, blah, blah. It's been such an amazing program implemented in how they break up a nation. It's amazing how they do it. And it's precision. Precision. It really has. And the first moves that they made in the 50s and 60s was stopping you procreating your race. At the same time, demolishing the family unit. The only power that keeps this shit at bay. Family unit is strong. When you get rid of that, look at what you've got. You've law land. But we're still in the game, ladies and gentlemen, because before they launch their nut jobs, they have to conscript the white male. And including the black males, because the black males have always and still are enslaved by the Arabs. 500 quid a shot, I think, an head. They're selling them still today on the market in North Africa. And I've said this before. You know, the blacks born in the West, I don't class them as African at all. They might class themselves as African, but they're not. They're English. They're American, because that's the character and attitude they have. These fruitcakes are pulling over from Africa. They're still jungle bunnies. They don't know anything outside of a mud hut. So there's a demarcation again. Black guys living here, existing here for whatever length of time, they're not African. And I'm talking in respect of character. You know, this is where we have to see. You've got to stop thinking soldier and start thinking strategy. Their strategy that they're employing. And there's still a few stepping stones that they need to achieve. The main one at this stage now is that we help them to destroy our own political system by believing Storm as the be-all and end-all of everything. Yeah? And that once he goes, everything will change. Well, unless you get somebody in that's real, nothing will change. Unless you get a real monarch in here, but not a monarch that wants to be king of the UK, which is a state. Somebody that wants to come in and be the king of England. And if Scotland wants to jump on board, We can lend it King of Scotland for a while until they get their own shit together. Now, I'm with that. I'm good for that. But anybody coming and for King of fucking UK, you for a start, you're not fit to be fucking king because you don't even know what it is you're being king of. So, you know, I'm sorry. I have to play hardball on this game. But this is the real situation. So you've got to think strategy, war strategy. This is what they're employing. And there's still some stepping stones that have to be played out. And the main one is to conscript you guys, your kids, your flea bags, all the white males and as many black males that were born here as they can. Culturally English. Because I've said this before. English isn't a race. English is a culture. And it's a culture that understands that the laws that were set forth here give you the freedom. And that freedom, the sovereignty of, was given to the office of monarch to keep in check at all times. We haven't had a monarch on here that's been playing that game. We're no longer people. We're no longer inhabitants. You're residents, you're citizens, you're persons, or humans. Big difference when you get into things like law, language, and meaning. This is why we're in such a mess. Latin. We don't even know Latin. Neither do I. I come across Latin when I'm looking into law, and then I understand it. But only what I'm looking at. They took that out of the system. We are so off the game because of our lack of education. But then if you're dependent on the state to educate you, or externally from outside of yourself, well, they're not going to educate you, they're going to program you. Which is exactly what's happened. Everybody's programmed to do as you're told, get a job, get a mortgage, have flea bags, hand them over to L system, let them screw them up, create customers. Programmed. And then retire. But then you're not going to be able to do that anyway because they keep upping the game and there's going to be net left. And then there's these hoity-toities up there that are taught how to own the ladder that you're trying to get up, own the company that you're going to get a job at, own the pharmaceutical companies that are making the profits off screwing you up, and all the food, which is full of shit that react with those intrusions that you get or you give your offspring when you're kids. It's all money. It's all creating an industry of perpetuity. The empire were built on addiction, ladies and gentlemen. Tea, alcohol, tobacco, opiates. All addictive substances that keeps them coming back. And if you go to that video that I've put up on my Facebook for the Sassoons, there you go. This is why China is being raised up as the New World Order. Because this is where the Exolite system made its biggest wealth. Forget the Rothschilds. They were just dealing with the West to get everything out to the East. Because that's where they're going to come forward from. Or at least in the middle of it. So as I've said before, Kazakhstan is the place. This is where they're setting everything up. When you get in them typhoons and they stick a load of rockets on you, forget what they're telling you to go. Get yourself over there and blow the living daylights out of it. And then they have no base. Then we hunt down their underground things. You know, I'm just talking facetious there. But at the end of the day, it's not actually facetious. It's real. This is the real sort of picture, a strategy that you've got to think in terms of. Not, I'm a soldier, tell me what to do, Gov. Because the one that's going to tell you what to do are the problem. And this is the situation we're in. Like it or lump it. That is it. So, yeah, what's it to be, ladies and gentlemen? Are you going to carry on sucking the shit out of the nonsense that they give out and dish out everywhere? The internet now is so full of nonsense, it's hard to make sense of anything. AI's gone ballistic. You know, you can't trust images, you can't trust videos, you can't even trust vocal narratives anymore. Everybody that you thought were a woman seems to be a man. Everybody you thought were a man seems to be a woman. And this has been going on since, what, 50s? This is what they've got away with. This is the point that we're at. You know? And you're not going to get out of it by following their lead obeying their laws, following their diversions, but more importantly, not recognising that Epstein, the whole gig, is not so much about the filth, it's about the blackmail. That's what it's about. It's about blackmail. They've got all our hoity-toity people blackmailed. Unless they're part of this clan. Which they're probably blackmailed anyway, because they never feel safe, these people. Until they've got you, one way or another. Get rid of that is an amnesty. It's easy. It's easy if you all agree and all move in the same direction. But if you... I mean, everybody's throwing about this term paedophile. Do you know what a paedophile is? It's somebody who's attracted to a prepubescent flea bag. Yeah, they're throwing paedophile around every fucking word. Misusing your own language. Is there any wonder it's confusion? A lot of these guys are not paedophiles. They're just sex addicted. And somebody's throwing 14-year-olds in front of them. I can get it. I get it. Especially if the wife's a fat Lloyd-ass bitch that won't do what she's told. You know what I'm saying? And somebody's saying, I'm getting 14, 15-year-olds here, lad. Shh. Of course they're going to do it. They're wealthy, they're rich, they're bored. They hate the wife. The kids have run off. I get it. I'm not condoning it, ladies and gentlemen. But I get it. I mean, reality, it's real. I get it. And they're not all paedophiles. Unless they're doing real damage to prepubescent flea bags. So in the main, that's for males, you might be saying below 14. And for girls, you might be saying before 12-year-old. That's paedophilia. Above that, we're not condoning it. We're not saying it's right. But get the fucking facts right. That is not paedophilia. Andy isn't a paedophile. He banged a 17-year-old woman 3 times and give her 15 grand. 5 grand a shot. That is not paedophilia. In fact, it's even fucking legal here. But look at, they're throwing him to the wolves so that you don't look at the shit show that's going on through Queen Medici Camilla. Look at it another way. We have gone through, have we not? Church of England has just oathed itself through this strange looking Archbishop of Canterbury to the liege lord. Everybody's saying it's the government. All government MPs, civil servants, military, police, Church of England, Freemasons, every single one of them, councillors, council executives, have taken an oath to King Charles III, a fictional entity. That is the entity that's running this shit show. The government is doing what it's told. There isn't an absent king. He's there. You won't believe it. You've acclaimed him the king. He's not the king of England. Get this in the right order. Then at least you can see the problem. When you can see the problem, you can look for remedy. There's always remedy. You've just got to get out your pajamas. And get off your fat ass and stop using Just Eat. Stop funding the culture that's taken over. You're putting your money in it. And then you moan about it. Not thinking. But you're going to have to recognise this is not going to change unless you pay attention and get involved. Be careful where you put your money. That's something all of you can do. But I miss Coronation Street. And no, I have to get out of my pyjamas and go outside and it's cold. And you're blaming the government? You're blaming the government. No. Government does what government's told. Evil does what evil does. You're letting it. dead in it. Until you're not. That's it. That is the game. That's what's on the table. And if you put your hope in any of these idiots out there, whether they're politicians, celebrities, shills, heroes, forget it. You might as well just get your kit off, get on the settee, and starve yourself to death. Because you're pointless. You're pointless because you can't be bothered. You're pointless because you want somebody else to do it for you. I mean, that's the biggest program going. Everybody's waiting for their own Messiah, the Mashiach, to come. Oh, he's going to save us all. We don't have to do shit. We just sit there and wait and see what happens. That's programming. You know, man's a creative force in man is in the image of the Creator. You're supposed to get off your fat ass and create. Not sit back and let everybody else do it. That's one of the deadly sins, isn't it? I believe. So there is my Sunday sermon for the 15th of February as we get closer to the new moon. The shifting animal to Chinese fire horse. Of course, I am a double fire horse. So I'm expecting this year to be super fantastic. Rockets up my ass and nuclear bombs coming out my ass is what I'm expecting. We've got some interesting astrological gigs going on all over the show. I did watch Claudio this week, but I can't remember what he said. Oh, Venus. Venus is big important on this. And other stuff. I'm not going to paraphrase him because I'll probably get it wrong, but there's quite a lot on the 17th and the 18th, and then again on the 20th. And then there's another big gig on the 28th. It's in a Phoenix cycle. Wow. There's a lot of shit going down right now. And especially on the 17th. So I'm ready for horse year because I am a double fire horse and it's a fire horse year. So woohoo is what I say. But it's up to you out there what and how this game plays out. You've got to take part. You've got to get involved. Even if it's a tiny little thing. Support people that are real if you can't be asked to do it yourself. Don't keep giving it to these dipsticks, these charities. Have you seen telly the other time? Oh, the cats has been abandoned. Fucking cats don't even need to live with anybody. They got fur on for a start. They're not cold. But, oh yeah, give us £5 a week. Oh, we'll save a cat. So, it's like, RSPCA does my fucking head in, honestly. Oh, and we need this and we need your help and can you give us £25,000 a day? Because leave us alone or you will. You lose your house. Fuck your kids. Fuck your kids and your grandkids. Leave it to RSPCA. Give us all your money. You're more important than your kids. And then these baby boomers believe it, you know. But, what, 15 years ago now? Oh, no, more, 20 years ago before I were on the internet. I'd watch this advertisement come on at Christmas like they do. And it was probably about 2 minutes long, this RSPCA advert. Blagging it, filthy dogs and cats and all that. Oh. And the idiot said that they collect 3,000 animals a year. Right? And then said, and we find home for 1,000. Meaning, they fucking slaughter 2,000 of your pets every year. And you're paying for it. Now, I put that out on the thing I was doing, which we're delivering it to all councillors. It never got seen again. That advert went off immediately. I did the same with the NSPCC. That advert disappeared immediately. You know, they tell you the crap if you're paying attention. But there's no change now. They're picking animals up off the street and killing them. They're killing your pets. The vets are killing your pets. People are poisoning them now in the forest. I would love to catch the bastards who were laying out poisoned meat in these forests. Because I know they're doing it at night. And I would love to catch them. Oh. If you ever hear of anybody coming out of a forest that's really in a bad way, I'm telling you, they've been caught putting that stuff down. Because they are doing it. And I don't know who it is. But if I ever find them, they're killing your pets. They're killing everything around you. Taking everything away from you. And if you're going to vets, you're doing it. You're paying for it. They make more money than doctors, the vets. I mean, in the main, doctors are earning money for the trust. They get a kickback, but in the main, it's for the trust. I mean, if you go in there, you're stupid and you're doing it to yourself. But, you're doing it to your pets, you're killing them. But RSPCA kills all the animals. Gives very few to homes. Very few. And if you are the microchip, vaccinated to the death, you're going to take on a flea bag that's going to cost you a mint. Because they've screwed it up. And who's getting paid to screw them up? Oh, vets of your donations. Can you see this, how it plays? It's so... And I watch these adverts and I just think, are people still that gullible? Like, they're now advertising for this comic relief. Do you know what that arsewipe does with all the money that he collects on comic relief? What's he called? That fucking idiot. He supports all the Islamic stuff, all the African stuff, and decries everything English. What's he called? The fucking arsehole. I can't remember his name. That's what he does with comic relief money. Oh, what's his name? I can't remember his name, but I don't like him. And I've never liked him, actually, because I never thought he was that funny. When he on Tiz was and just acted like a complete twat. And I never actually thought he was funny. He was just one of them dipsticks. But comic relief money, it's undermining your nation. Right, so I said that at the end of my sermon before, and I'll carry it on. So anyway, that's the end of the sermon. Oh my God, we're early tonight. This is good. They don't always have to be 2 hours, do they? Come on. Right, so what are you guys saying? Allowing the PCI back on Blighty, says Mew. You do know around the time Cromwell was doing deals for financial aid from Ebenezer Pratt, with the downfall of Charles I being part of the deal. Of course I know. I've got copious amounts of data on my website about just that. But I'll tell you what, you didn't know that when they were describing Cromwell in earlier times, he was black. General George Monk, the guy who could have stopped Cromwell in an instant because he had the military might, was sent everywhere outside of England, Ireland, Scotland. He was black. And Moors, there were some Moors. The Moors are very involved in this takeover of everything. And this pretends that they were knocked off and, oh, what a shame, they were the leaders when we had Tortory. Yeah, right. These are involved. Big time. So I bet you didn't know that, did you? This is why you don't have any images of him. Very few, just 1 or 2. Because when you look at the description, just like Henry VIII, John of Gaunt, all these dark-skinned guys, and if we've just seen there, Charles II, dark-skinned. Yeah, if you were to go back to English, they were all gingers, ginger nuts. But yeah, historians, well, it's not historians, is it? It's academics. They're playing the game. They write the script, they write the books, they write the history, they edit everything. The way I did it back in the mystery school days was if I was studying a subject matter, I'd study one side's idea and I'd go and study the other side's idea. And 9 times out of 10, the propaganda that we get because you're in this country, when you read the opposition's thingy, 9 times out of 10, it was your gang that started it all and with the assholes. Like we had with the first. Totally gone against, the Holy See and the Solomons. Most books written that you read about Edward the First, he's classed as a bastard. I mean, they even said that he went out one day in forest with his men, found an old man in the forest and cut out his eye. It's like, no, I can't say that myself, but all these things, all shoved in there, all coming from Holy See monks writing them. And it really is, outrageous. So did you know that, Jerry, me old China? Allowing the PCI back on Blight, says Mew. After 500 years roughly of being banished, was it? Well, they weren't actually all thrown out, in truth, but they all went to Scotland. They were banished from Blighty and went to Scotland. And taught the Scots how to shag haggis. And pretend that they were good and that it were our fault. They're very good at that, the PCIs. They come in as a predator and then attack the victim and turn it into the predator. Narcissism. That's how it works. But they weren't all banished. They didn't all go. You get into it proper. They were taking over land and property because the people that had borrowed couldn't pay it back. The king had no choice but to get rid of them because that was his job, to secure the land and the property of the English when the monarchs were working correctly. So it weren't like they just hated them. They didn't have a choice. The law made it happen. Yeah? And like, they got thrown out. Yeah, well, what were you doing, you little Johnny-come-latelys? What were you doing, bumming kids and all that malarkey and nicking everybody's land? Yeah, not allowed. In Christendom, it wasn't allowed. We're not in Christendom anymore. We're under PCI shit, usually garbage. Fingers are sticky from the pies, Mew, says Jerry. Ayers Bridge, heaviest millstone, says Jerry. Anthony says, from a different perspective, the system that they all uphold in a legal sense, a legal minor status, statutory enforcement, therefore statutory intercourse with legal minors, the gig in reality. Well, where have I got this? Oh, there we go. Iran burned the statue of Baal to declare war on us. We're watching what is happening, said Milikowski. And I've seen Mel Gibson laughing about it as well. But yeah, there's Baal. So you Johnny-come-latelys, Jehovah's Witnesses that are supporting all this shit, Baal. Well, you've read your Bible, haven't you? Wakey. And unfortunately, there's been a state of emergency declared across Iran. And full readiness for war. European reports indicate that America is preparing to launch an imminent strike against Iran. Now, where's Pedram? You know, we haven't heard from Pedram for a while, which is sad. I hope he's fine, but he was having trouble with Afghan Pashtun. So here is your indigenous Israel prime ministers and the real origins. Polish, Hungarian, Polish, Russian, Polish, or Lithuanian, Belarusian, Ukrainian, and Polish. Eastern Khazar Bolsheviks. Not a single Semitic shag faggot in it. And that was Global Insight Tour there, so, you know, looks like it's real, that. What else did I have? Oh, yeah, just know thyself. These are the 3 Delphic maxims. Know thyself, nothing in excess, and certainty brings ruin. Good pieces of gigs too. Oh, this is a good one. Now, I found this. You're not going to believe. This is the monasteries that were dissolved under the PCI's man, Henry the bird killer. Okay, so it starts up there. Lindisfarne, Bamborough. Look at all these. Okay, you aren't going to believe this. These are monasteries dissolved by Fat Henry, the lady killer. Look at them. I mean, you're not telling me that this is how England used to be. We're told that all these monasteries were evil and sick and crap. Well, look at this. They had power. Look at this. Look at the state. Look at that. I mean, if that weren't a power base back then, I don't know what was. I think us English Christians are a little bit different to them spastics over in Europe. Look at the size of that. That is a lot. No wonder he was wealthy. But then his dad were as well. His dad left him a shitload of cash. But look at that. Where did all that wealth go? To the crown. The crown that's no longer the crown, because we are the crown. Went to the inner city of London, the East India Companies, the PCIs, and we wonder why we've no country left. So what else did I have in here? I did have some other stuff. Let's have a look. Right, let me just have a look. Did you know this? Because I didn't. Oh, wait a minute. I need to get rid of that one now. No, that one. So this is interesting. I didn't even know this. But the plantations, when they were first kicked off over there in the old Jamaica, After England seized Jamaica in 1655, thousands of Irish Catholics were forcibly deported to the Caribbean as indentured servants. Today, 25% of Jamaicans have Irish roots, and the island is dotted with Irish place names. Huh? So you black guys, you think you're special? No, you're not special. You're not special at all. And they say it's English. No, this is German shit. Stuart Solomon shit. Venetian shite that did all this. There were no English monarchs then. You know, when you start to see that picture, look at the Medici, you get, you know, you understand that stuff. And it says England seized Jamaica. No, East India Company seized Jamaica. You know what I mean? It's important, this stuff. Because we're running on wind and piss, in truth, with all this so-called bloody truth. You know, it's just... Here's another one. People are not aware of. Who created the term Nazi? A term created by this man, Conrad Hayden, a Marxist Jew, to ridicule the National Socialists in Germany. Today it's used to attack any European who does not hate his race, culture and history, and who wishes to protect and preserve his own people and children's future. Somebody who opposes enforced mass immigration of non-Europeans into his ancestral homeland. Yeah? And we know if you put Ashka before that, you know, they don't have like taking the piss. They play with these words and people just suck it up. Have you seen this? This is just getting sick. This is what they're up to. This is in Darwin, in Lancashire. The police are putting these up in parks. Right? We want to reduce the risk, police address why CCTV has been installed in a park in Darwin, in Lancashire. Okay, don't spend your money on that. Round up these fucking illegal immigrants, these rapists, these prisoners, these filth, and deport them. I don't want to spend money on this, because I know it's got nothing to do with that. It's just your excuse to get into everywhere. And do your fucking job. Well, of course, you are doing the job because you're not police constables anymore. You're actually criminals and impersonating a police constable. This is what you can expect in your parks now, ladies and gentlemen. Now, when we were kids, I know what would have happened to them. Cameras would have been in our bedrooms in bits because we would have wanted to have a look at them. And the rest of it, well, it would probably be in bushes. Because that's the way we used to roll. What else have I got? Oh, here's an interesting one. In America at the moment. I heard this girl talk. She's a slam dunker. She's a belter. So this girl she's a looker. She's a bit of a looker there. She can come to my party if she wants. I'll be your bestest friend. And Carrie Prejean Boller, a former Miss California, was removed Wednesday from President Donald Trump's Religious Liberty Commission following a contentious hearing on anti-Semitism for what she claimed were efforts to force commissioners to affirm Zionism, Andalou reports. Now, I know that she's Catholic, and I saw her giving it L to some thing, and she was saying, I'm a Catholic, I don't believe in Zionism, am I anti-Semitic? And this little PCI wouldn't answer. No member of the commission has the right to hijack a hearing for their own personal and political agenda on any issue, Patrick wrote, adding that what happened was clearly, without question, grounds for her removal. Why? This is how pathetic it's got. Boller wrote in a statement Tuesday that she would not resign and rejected accusations that she had pursued a political agenda. Forcing people to affirm Zionism is a condition of participation. It's not only wrong, it's directly contrary to religious freedom, especially on a body created to protect conscience, she wrote. As a Catholic, I have both a constitutional right and a God-given freedom of religion and conscience not to endorse a political ideology. Because that's what Zionism is. It's the political wing of rabbinical Judaism. So it's not Judaism itself. Just as ISIS is the political wing of Islam. Or a government that is carrying out massive civilian killing and starvation. The controversy stems from a heated hearing at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., where commissioners questioned witnesses about anti-Semitism in America. Boiler asked whether criticism of Israel, opposition to Zionism, or protest against Israel's genocidal war against Palestinians in Gaza Strip should be considered anti-Semitic. If I don't support the political state of Israel, am I an anti-Semite? Yes or no, she asked. Among those testifying was American Jewish activist Shabbos Kestenbaum, who wrote Monday that he was deeply disappointed that one commissioner focused exclusively on Israel, rather than discrimination against American Christians and Jews. I mean, this is Trump, the PCI bitch that he is, and Americans, wake up, guys. If you're all obsessed with evangelical Christianism over there, Bible bashing thumpers like you won't believe. Milikowski's made it clear. It's a war declaration because Iran has burned a statue of Baal. And that's a declaration of war on him. Us, as he says. Does that not tell you everything you need to know? You need to be on more moonshine over there in the old USA, I think. You're not having enough moonshine. Right, so, where were we? Lenny Henry, that's a twat. Can't stand him. But you look into, it's like you look into Bob Geldof. He were told what would happen with that money if he sent it where he was sending it. It would go to a military junta who would then slaughter Africans. So I say everybody that did Live Aid is cursed. The genocide, the murder that happened and took place on that money that you all put in if you did. He were told. This is why he's up there with the fucking hoity-toys. You had his ex-wife and her lover, Australian guy, both dead. You're telling me he didn't have a play in that? I don't know, but it just sounds a little bit suspicious to me that he got knocked off. I don't know. I don't like that. I don't like the guy either. So I don't like Henry and I don't like Geldof. They're both a pair of arseholes, if you ask me. Where are we? Lenny Henry, that's him. Ugh, I can't stand the guy. How is the dog Mios? Okay. That's Lenny Henry. Lynn Hainesful. Lenny Henry, thanks Lynn. All in his own bro, loving the little blighter, back to full health. Oh, it's the dogs. Jonathan Family Smith says Lenny Henry comic relief found scandal when it was revealed in 2013 that some of the money raised far from going to help people in need in Africa had been invested in tobacco and arms companies. I bet John and Lenny Henry has shares in that as well. Jerry says that I didn't show. No problem, Jerry. I've been taking the same oil capsules and can't walk past the lamppost, says Mew. Alright, yeah. I missed something there, I think, Real China. Beanbuster says, a good read for the truth about Jesuit control is Chupper F. Sauce's book, Rulers of Evil. Thanks for that, Big E. Warrington and Norton on the map. Yeah, everywhere. See the monasteries, how many there were? Flaming Nora. Jerry says, yes, I did, Sean. To summit. Okay. Anthony says, he's laughing his head off. And Unbelievable says, Jerry, Jonathan Family Smith said it's getting worse than Orwell's in 1984. And it's going to get a whole lot worse. The control mechanisms that are going to come in are disgusting. You ain't seen nothing yet. Seriously. Wait till they get that fraud error recovery bill as law. That's for one thing and one thing only, to get in everybody's bank accounts. Bobby's Girl. Evening to you, Bobby's Girl says, I think those "Do They Know It's Christmas Time" lyrics are demonic. Always have. Well, I'd agree. The whole fucking thing was demonic, but it launched a lot of asswipes, didn't it? Look at Bono, the super fruit bat, and his jolly idiot band, This should be ashamed. Irish people should be ashamed of that bunch of tossers. In truth, they were a brilliant band back in the day when they first come out, and then they did Live Aid. Stole the show. It's like quite ridiculous, really. You know, the only ones I really have respect for are people like George Michael. The guy was a super talent. Michael Jackson, who, have you seen the latest, was actually rescuing kids from Epstein Island. Now then, look how they twisted that around. You know, he made such a mistake paying off people. He should never have done that. But he got found not guilty every single time in the court. Well, I'm surprised he took it free in court, to be honest, if he were rescuing kids. But unreal, innit? Let's be honest. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I will say thanks for joining. Mods, thanks for modding. And thanks for taking part, everybody, one and all. I hope that just adds to the evidence of the information that I've been pulling out there for quite some time. So it makes sense to you and you get in the grift of it. And hopefully, Tommy the Tit is no more. And if he comes back onto Blighty, it should be the Blighties that he's afraid of. More than anybody else. So let's hope. And of course, we're heading to summer. Spring first, of course. We can't get too far ahead of ourselves. It's all going in the right direction, ladies and gentlemen, I say. And that's got to be good. Yeah, he built Neverland as the alternative, didn't he? Thanks a lot. I mean, the guy was a genius. I don't care what anybody says. I remember Alex Jones having a major rant about him when he died. Hey, he's died a fucking... I thought, you are such a dumbass. You know, if you're a musician... The guy was a genius. He were the groove, you know. And George Michael was what you might call... just the soul of it, you know. Unbelievable. Unfucking-believable. You could almost think they were black men. You know, some of these black artists. Not today, they're all fucking idiots, but... In their day, you know. But anyway... I will say, have a great week. Let's hope we don't get any snow, unless you want to go sledging. And I shall say, as always... Till the next time.
electronica, electronica.